Here we go.
Right.
Hello, Alan.
Hi, how you doing, Karen?
Doing all right. We're a bit sleepy, aren't we?
I'm very sleepy.
Very sleepy. You've had to drop your family off to the airport this morning.
Yeah, it's silly o'clock this morning.
Silly o'clock. Well, thank you. I mean, I've just come round to my friend's house, Jane, and we were just talking about names. Because I know you, Alan. I've met you a few times now as Jane's friend. And we were just talking about the way you call yourself. You call yourself Alan of Salisbury.
That's correct, yeah.
And so I said, why?
Well, basically the talks I did the video about 10 years ago now, called The Occult Art of Law.
Yeah.
And I authored that as Alan of Salisbury, so I didn't want to use my surname because I know what surname means. I know what names mean. People get confused.
Okay.
In Old English, like Tudor times, people would say, instead of saying yay or nay, so instead of saying yes or no, they'd say yay or nay. And nay me is not you. That's where the term name comes from.
Nay me is, nay me is not you.
Yeah, so if you were an actor and
Yeah.
you were acting a role, and they wouldn't want you to be yourself, so you would answer to a nay me.
Oh, I see. Oh my gosh, that makes sense, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's where the term comes from. For example,
which is name, me, name.
Yeah, it is.
Name.
Well, at the moment they're talking about identity.
Yeah.
They want identity for all sorts of things now, and they don't know where the term comes from. ID comes from the Semitic. It actually means possession.
Right. Okay.
So when you realise the root of identity, or id means possession, they want possession of your authentic self, your real self, literally your soul, and then they want you to be something that's not you.
Gosh, it's quite confusing, really, isn't it? If you don't understand it.
Well, that's the whole point. So in the occult term, they want to...
May I just say what occult means? Because a lot of people, you know, when you say the word occult, you think hooky spooky, don't you?
Yeah.
A lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's just another word for hidden. Is that correct?
Yes, another word for hidden. Yeah, which is apocalypse, means to remove the veil.
Wow.
So that's where the root of these words come from. And when you get into the words, like one of the speakers that you had the other day, Gary, was really good, and he was giving us books away. They're really good books, and the roots are there. I mean, I knew quite a bit of what was written there, but there were some little nuggets I'd missed.
Right, different words. And
it's like joining the dots. So, in an occult, in a sense, if you imagine you've got these black magicians who summon up demons, what they're after is your soul.
Crikey.
Okay.
Wow, we've gone deep here, haven't we? Okay.
It is real deep. But you see in the horror movies and all that kind of thing with the vampires and all that. So when they take your soul, they need to use you as, what was it they used to call the ones after the vampire had got them and they kept them alive?
Oh God, victims. Is there a name for them?
There is a name, Nostrami or something. Zombies or something like that. Well, so they're not being an authentic self. They're being a zombie. So they've got a namey that's not them.
Oh, I see. They've got a namey because their soul has been taken.
That's right.
Okay, they've been
possessed. So they can't be authentic. So you then just have this body that has to have a namey.
Okay.
But they need you, in the occult terms, to consent to be a namey.
Right.
So when somebody says to you, I need to see some ID, I need a name and a surname, and a date of birth, then if you give a namey and a surety namey, because that's where the term surety comes from, you're consenting to be inauthentic. That's not who you really are. You're consenting to be an actor.
Right, you're going along with it.
Yeah, you're going along with it.
Whatever who would you say they are? When people, you hear these conversations, they say they, and you just refer to something on the movie. So, and the life is. I mean, this is a deep conversation just to go into.
Well, it is. It is a deep conversation, and if you go back to the roots of Shakespeare, for example,
yes.
which is what I was talking about, where he says the whole world is a stage. Well, if
yes.
you're being inauthentic, then it is. And if your whole life is being something that you're not, then it is all authentic. You're acting. It's an acting job. And it all makes sense when you realize that in legal, for example, legal is not law. In legal, you have acts and statutes and what's called instruments. Well, an act is exactly what it says. It's an act, and everybody in the House of Commons and everything, they're all being a namee. They're all being, dare I say, inauthentic, aren't they?
Right, I guess,
They're famous for being inauthentic.
Yes.
And so when they contrive to do this acting job, most people have an acting job. If you ask people who they are, they won't say I'm a man or a woman. They'll give a job description.
Yeah.
They'll say I'm a doctor or a mechanic.
Right, you give your profession.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that isn't who you really are, is it?
No, I suppose not. It's a title. No, it's a description. Yes.
Okay. And on a letter, they'll put a title on the letter: a Mr., a Miss, Mrs., Doctor, Professor. They're all titles. They're not the authentic.
So what is the purpose? Why aren't they, whoever they might be? Why is this happening?
Well, it's part of a black magic ritual, really.
Gosh.
I know it sounds really crazy, because most people can't see it. They've been brought up with it, and they get used to their role. They act their role, just like in families. You have a certain family drama. That people take on their roles, don't they?
Yeah.
And then somebody changes, and then it upsets the whole family.
Yeah, the whole unit.
The whole thing. The whole thing breaks families apart. I mean, look, just look what happened to when we had the medical intervention.
Yes.
Some people were for having the medical intervention, and some weren't.
Yeah.
And that split families up.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. The recent. Yeah, a big divide.
But,
yes. Yeah.
But the actual, if you like, the play or the narrative, or the act or the performance of that was called COVID-19 or COVID-19, whatever you want to look at it, and that word COVID backwards, is Divok.
Yes.
And Divok is the name of a demon, an ancient demon.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. So how do you get all this information? I mean, because you look like a normal bloke. You know, you don't look like a magician or a wizard that casts spells. So what is your background?
Well, I've got a mixed background. I started off as working on the cable ships for the post office. I worked it was called the General Post Office then.
Yeah.
One of which went down to the South Atlantic, and then I became a musician, had a record deal. That kind of ran its course: sex, drugs, rock and roll. Ended up in rehab.
Oh.
Marriage gone, all the other stuff, and then I trained as a therapist.
As a therapist.
Worked in the field of addiction for a number of years.
Right. Okay. And what led you down this path to look into like black magic and all these funny words?
Well, it was a meeting, a chance meeting with a guy called John Harris, who passed about 10 years ago, and he was a very down to earth, working class bloke, and he told me what understand meant. We went through Black's Law Dictionary. Because I would go through a normal Oxford dictionary.
Yes.
And I thought all dictionaries were the same. And they said more or less that words say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Until I looked at Black's Law Dictionary, and they have a very specific meaning. So, for example, I used to think that understand meant that somebody comprehended when they said, do you understand?
Yeah.
You know, like my teacher would say, do you understand what I'm saying, Alan? Like whether I did or not.
Mm.
But in Black's Law Dictionary, they reverse it, which is an interesting thing with words. As I said, with Divok and COVID, it means to stand under. So if somebody says, do you understand? Someone in authority says, do you understand? Like, say, a police officer, for example, and you say yes, that means you've consented, because it's all on consent, to stand under their authority.
Wow.
So if they say jump, you say how high.
Wow. So it's like a control mechanism to an
Well, it is, yeah, and the corporate world and the legal world all operate under kind of Black's Law Dictionary, whereas us punters, if you like, we don't know anything about that, and we've got a completely different idea of what these words mean.
Two different paths, but we don't know what's going on. So the Black's Law Dictionary, I mean, where did that come from? And why are we not introduced to it at school, and who uses it?
Right, okay. It comes from a guy in America who was he was very much into mood and mind altering substances.
Okay.
Actually, came from quite a wealthy background, but he contrived to get this dictionary together for the legal system, because they've always manipulated people with words to keep people illiterate.
Okay.
So when people are literate, they don't know what they're saying. They think they do, but I mean, this was the whole story behind Shakespeare. Is that with Francis Bacon, who was the editor of the King James Bible, I think the first one was 1611. If you look at the first edition, King James Bible, 1611, there is no letter J. Right, so it didn't exist in the alphabet, which is interesting in the New Testament, because everyone's referring to Jesus, which has a J in it. Well, not in that Bible, it doesn't. So, and things are edited because there's a lot of translation that goes in there. So originally it would have been in Aramaic or Hebrew. Old Hebrew has no vowels, for example.
Right. Okay.
So you've got to translate that into Greek, and from Greek it went to Latin, and from Latin it went to English.
Yeah.
So there weren't that many guys who were as learned at that time, and Francis Bacon was one of them. I mean, it's a hell of a work to accomplish to get all that together.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also at the same time, around about that time, there was introduced into the English language about 20,000 new words. And shortly after that, they then began to formalize dictionaries.
Right.
But what they were doing is, within those words, they created what was called words of art.
Yeah.
So a word would have a very specific meaning to those who were initiated with it, or those who were literate, but other people wouldn't know. I mean, for example, a word of art is like the word conversion. Mm-hmm. Now, I used to think conversion just meant if I was going abroad on a holiday, I'd convert my pounds into euros or whatever. It just meant you convert
you swap something.
My son plays rugby, they have a conversion shot.
Simple word,
But in legal terms, in terms of contracts, and you have to remember that Francis Bacon, he created the first Virginia Treaty of America. So that was the first document that defined America.
Wow.
And the term America comes from Brittany on the northwest coast of France. That used to be called Amorica.
Did it?
Yeah. So if you look at the Brittany flag, which is black, and it's got the lines, and it's quite similar to the flag of America.
Crikey.
Wow. But anyway, the word conversion has a specific meaning. It means to do with the property of another that which is inconsistent of their right. So that's a word of art.
Can you say that again?
To do with the property of another that which is inconsistent of their rights.
And can you translate that to something really simple?
Okay, well, if I wanted to say take over a whole country and I wanted to convert the native population, I would want to do with their property that is inconsistent of their right.
Wow.
So now that word takes on a completely different meaning. Different. And so in that time with the Virginia Treaty, a lot of conversion went on in America.
Yeah,
certainly towards the Native Americans.
Absolutely, the stories.
It's all encapsulated in that one word.
But what would give somebody the right, as Francis Bacon, to do this? I mean, how do they have the power, the jurisdiction? Is it just today I think I'm going to go and change the world? I mean, where does all this come from?
Well, I'm unable to ask Francis Bacon, he'd obviously be the best person to answer that. So anything I say is speculation.
Yeah.
But if we go back and look at some of the translations of the older testaments in the Bible, because most of them, well, nearly all of them, with very few exceptions, are all copies of the original.
Right.
So they've all been copied by the Roman Church, basically, all of them. The most recent ones are the Nag Hammadi scrolls, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, which had testaments that were not in the Bible, and they were written in Aramaic or Old Hebrew. And you would think they would want to be included, like the Testament of St. Thomas or Mary Magdalene, all these ones. They were all specifically excluded, as the Book of Enoch also was excluded from the Bible. So there was an agenda in concocting a Bible. Well, what does Bible mean? Bible is basically a library, like the French is a bibliothèque.
Bibliothèque, I was going to say, yes.
Okay, so the one book is a collection of books in one, and a collection of books is known as a library. And so, quite recently I went to my local library at Lambeth, and the guys that run things there, they got rid of some of the books that I wanted to see. There were some interesting books there that were about landing on the moon or not, all this kind of stuff. They've got rid of those books.
Why would you get rid of some historic books? Just because there's new books to replace them, the Harry Potters, or?
Well, of course, what's happening is they're getting rid of books per se and replacing everything into a digital format.
Right, okay.
No, and I remember going in there, I was doing some research, and so I'm there on one of their computers, where I got my library card and stuff, and I wanted to get on their search engine to check out David Icke.
Okay.
And David Icke's quite famous, quite controversial.
Yeah, he's a conspiracy theorist, apparently, is he not?
Yeah, they say that.
Yeah.
And for example, that's an interesting thing. If you want to research the term conspiracy theorist, it was created by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, in America, for anyone that questioned the official narrative of the Kennedy assassination. That's where it was born. So anybody that came up with another idea, that was it the Warren Commission or something like that, I think they had that. Anybody that disagreed with that, they were put down or discredited by saying, "Oh, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist."
So to dismiss them, kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's a term that's born out of anybody who disagrees or even questions the official line is known as a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
And people just pick that up and they quote it themselves. They don't know what was going on. But we do know, if we look at the Kennedy assassinations as subsequently happened. The official narrative doesn't bear too close a scrutiny, shall we say.
Okay.
That would be the best way.
Yeah.
And you can see then perhaps why they would need to come out and kind of weaponize words, because that's what conspiracy theory is. It's how to weaponize words. And so you can see, like in the term conversion, it sounds quite innocent, but it's a weaponized word.
Because is there not a saying, the word is mightier than the sword?
Well, yeah, the pen is more powerful.
Okay, yes.
It is, but it depends in the context. And if you look at words and just take the S off the end and put it on the front, it becomes sword.
Wow. Gosh, you know your stuff, don't you?
Well, no, it's once you start looking at stuff and reversing words, you can see things, because really, if you go back, the ancient Hebrew links into numbers.
Right.
And the highest number is 9. You can add zeros to it to make it bigger, but the highest number is 9. It's always divisible by itself. And each number has an image or is a sign. For example, if you take the letter 8 and put it on its side, that is infinity.
Infinity, yes, of course.
That's a sign of infinity.
Yes.
So there's a lot more to numbers and there's a lot more to letters.
Yes.
And each letter has a different number as well. So if you put the letters together to make words, you're actually creating a mathematical sum as well.
Okay.
And sometimes those words can be read backwards and have a different meaning.
Yeah.
If you really want to check it out, you can check out a guy called Russell J. Gold, the correct parsé syntax grammar. I can't remember the whole thing, where he uses mathematical language in the now space in time, which is what a musician would use. You play in time. The sentences can be read forwards and backwards, so there's no confusion in any contracts.
Okay.
So, and we do know how certain members of the legal society have liked to make their words. You'll never get a straight answer. You know, it's about
ducking and diving and weaving and bobbing or whatever it is.
All that. Well, more technically, it's basically if someone asks you a straight question and they want to avoid a straight answer, then they will deflect or they will ask another question there. So there are skills that members of the Bar Association, interesting enough, Bar is officially, it's called the British Accredited Registry, but it's also, if said 3 times, an ancient Hebrew curse.
Gosh, goodness me, you are a knowledge of everything.
And
wow.
that would be the music of it. So you would say that 3 times. I won't say it because it would be a curse. It's like your signature is your sign of nature, and it's written it aside.
And notice
that
they
means
reported everything 3 times.
Sorry, we're in an interview, so I can't bring you in, Jane. I'm so sorry. So we just had a little interjection there.
You have to cut that one out.
Yes.
So signature is your sign of nature, and it's written sideways in lowercase, but it's joined up. That's called a cursive text. So that's a curse as well.
Wow. Oh my gosh, it all makes sense.
So there are rules and formulas when they formally taught Latin and literature and how to be literate. In the same way that it is with mathematics. It has the same integrity locked in it. But what most people are taught, all that's missed out. And so what they speak is called babble.
Babble?
It's actually called...
Nothing from Babylon. We're not linking Babylon to this, are we?
There you go.
Oh, we are?
People babble on
and
on.
Babylon from Babylon. Oh my goodness me.
And we live in baby London.
Baby London. Do you want to come in, Jane,
London.
and say something? Do you want to come in and say hi to the camera? Do just come and wave? Because you've just brought in a voice.
My apron.
That's fine.
I was just pointing out that during
you have to come here.
During everything.
This is Jane, my friend.
During the the scandemic, everything was 3 things. 3 men coming out. Stand, save the world. Was it? I've had 2 glasses of wine now. It was save the national health, fight the virus.
We're not saying too much.
Stay in, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And everything's 3 things.
3 words.
3 words all the time.
That's
3.
how you cast it, and also all the alphabet agencies, CIA, BBC, because you remember things in 3s. And if you're casting spells, you would cast those in spells, yeah.
So it's a bit Harry Potterish, really, isn't it?
Well, ironically, yes, and there's a lot hidden in Harry Potter as well, those books.
Yes.
A lot of signs.
Fascinating.
And going back to the original word, which is your question, what does occult mean?
Yeah.
And that's what it means. It's to keep something hidden.
Hidden but in plain sight.
Yeah, so you would think what understand meant, not to comprehend, or conversion, just
yes.
And there are lots of words like that,
Well, Alan, I've just literally put you on the spot because I popped round to see Jane. I said, let's have a chat because we were talking about spells, and then bless her, Jane's come in and I don't know, said a few things, but I'll end it there.
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciate it. Did you answer my initial question? I think, which is something about why. So you don't use your surname. You call yourself Alan of Salisbury.
Yeah.
And
well, that's because I was doing the occult art of law, and I didn't. I used, authors use.
A pen name.
A pen name,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
just as that in the video.
Okay, and that's for no other
and it's
reason.
not rare. It's quite rare for me to allow myself to be on video anyway.
Oh, so we are honoured, and you're happy for
Yeah, that's all right.
Have you had a couple of glasses of wine as well then?
No, I haven't had a drink for 27 years.
Oh, the same as me. The same. Well, not 27 years, but 10 years. I feel much better for it.
Well, for me, I mean, it was like I said, sex, drugs, rock and roll. I did the rehab as well at the end.
Did you? I haven't had to. No, mine was by choice.
Mm.
Just thought I got to 50. I thought I've had enough now. It just becomes a habit, and I have more clarity. I think I became a yoga teacher, and I realised my yoga teacher said you can do all this stuff. You can be bendy and flexible and pray and meditate, but if you're going to drink alcohol, it will mess up the spirit. Will mess up your mind, and I just wanted clarity. So.
Well, that's why the drink that was gin is actually called gin, because gin means demon.
Oh yes, it does. Yes, I know. When I've been in other countries, they talk about gin and juju. I don't know where the juju comes from. Fascinating. I'd love to talk to you again, but I know I've caught you on the spot because you've had an early morning start dropping your family off to the airport, and hence we've got Altric, son of Altric here. Yeah, he's calmed down a little bit, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Karen. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, lovely.
I hope that'll do.